So it is always a pleasure to present the finding of the World Investment Report with colleagues in Bahrain. It's been now for several years, and I'm very glad once again to present the findings of the report. As every year, the report presents the latest trends on foreign direct investment, the greenfield investment projects, and international project finance deals. Especially, the report also presents a dedicated section for the SDG project investment trends. The World Investment Report 2025 delivers a sobering message. Global foreign direct investment fell by 11% in 2024 to 1.5 trillion. Infrastructure investment is slowing, industrial investment is under strain, and developing countries, those most in need, are being left behind. Rising trade tensions, policy uncertainty, and geopolitical divisions risk making the investment environment even worse. One bright spot is the digital economy, but the growth in this sector remains highly uneven. Investment in digital infrastructure is essential to closing the digital divide. Digital connectivity is a powerful driver of progress if we ensure it reaches everyone. This year's report explores how international investment can help bridge that divide. It offers practical guidance to help governments to attract and direct capital towards inclusive growth, advancing the Global Digital Compact and the Sustainable Development Goals. Now more than ever, we need to work together to chart a course towards a more resilient and sustainable world. The World Investment Report offers ideas and insights to help do just that. So before talking about investment in digital, let me present. The report has 4 chapters. The first one is international investment trends. The second one speaks about the investment policies related to foreign direct investment. The third one is about sustainable finance trends. And the fourth one is the chapter of digital investment, international investment in digital economy. My presentation, because it's too long, will focus only on the first chapter and the last chapter. The second and the third, you can have more information in the report. And if you have any other questions, I will be happy to respond to you. So let me start first with the global FDI. As I mentioned, global FDI, in fact, global FDI rose by 4%. If you look at the report in the annex tables, the global FDI rose by 4%. But this headline figure was inflated by volatile financial transactions through several European conduit economies. And here we have 4 economies, Ireland, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and Switzerland, that they have quite a lot of volatility in their FDI flows. If we exclude the FDI from these economies, these countries, global FDI will decrease by 11% to 1.5 trillion. What is the outlook, since we are speaking about FDI, before going to the different types of investment, namely greenfield projects, project finance, and cross-border M&As? What is the prospects for 2025? The outlook for international investment in 2025 is negative. While modest growth seemed possible at the start of the year, trade tensions have led to downward revisions of most indicators of FDI prospects, namely GDP growth, capital formation, exports, foreign exchange and financial volatility, and investor sentiment. While tariffs have led to some investment project announcements aimed at restructuring supply chain in manufacturing sectors, their main effect has been a dramatic increase in investor uncertainty. Early data for the first quarter of 2025 show record low activity in deals and projects. So this is about FDI. Now let's go to each of the separate types of investment. Starting with the greenfield project, the greenfield projects show an increase of 3% in terms of number. The value declines slightly by 5%, but at 1.3 trillion, it remains the second largest, highest level on record. International project finance continued its slump in 2024. The value of IPFs, important for infrastructure investment, was 26% lower, and the number is 27% lower, following an already sharp decline in 2023. And this is due to the continued uncertainty over exchange rate and interest rate, which are affecting financing conditions. And finally, the cross-border merger acquisitions, they increased by 14%. This was the most positive out of the three types. Nevertheless, the value of cross-border merger acquisitions, which mostly affect FDI in developed countries, increased, but it was still below the average of the last decade. So what is happening now at the different income groups, so developing countries and different regions? In developed countries, in 2024, trends again was, as I mentioned before, strongly affected by the financial transaction and corporate reconfigurations. They were driven by two factors: by supply chain restructuring and international tax reforms. These two make that especially intra-company loans to be quite volatile, and therefore the FDI had some volatility. So if we exclude this volatility of these four countries, FDI decreased in developed countries. In all the largest economies, European economies, they fell significantly. Inflows in North America, in contrast, was 23% up, mainly the United States, where the increase of FDI was 20% up. And of course, this was mostly bolstered by the increase of M&As, higher M&A values. FDI in developing countries were stable at 867 billion, despite sizable increases in Africa and in Southeast Asia. In developing economies, there is a big decrease of international project finance deals. They fell by almost 1/3, and the value of greenfield investment project fell by 20%. So in developing countries, there was a different story, or basically the contrast with last year. Last year, we had developed countries, they had a decrease in greenfield projects. Well, this year is the other way around. So developing economies saw the greenfield project decline. What is important is, we mentioned last year, but still this year is still valid. FDI remained concentrated among few, mostly large, middle-income developing countries. 10 large recipients account for 3/4 of developing country flows. It shows that basically, when we're talking about developing countries and the trends in developing countries, 3/4 is basically these 10 largest economies. What's happened in Africa? FDI flows in Africa increased by 75% to a new record of 97 billion. But this was due largely from a deal of investment fund in United Arab Emirates, deal in Egypt. If you exclude them, the FDI in Africa still will increase by 12% at 64 billion. FDI flows to developing Asia remain the largest region. They increased by 3%. They were down by 3%. FDI in China fell for the second consecutive year with a 29% decrease. Flows to ASEAN increased by 10% to 225 billion. This was a new record. They fell by 2% in India, despite the increase in greenfield projects. FDI flows to West Asia, where your country is part of it, remained at a high level, and it was mainly because of a strong inflows in the United Arab Emirates. In Latin America and the Caribbean, FDI flows decreased by 12%, reflecting in part due to lower energy prices in 2024. In Latin America, it's very much, FDI in Latin America is very much correlated with energy prices, because they have quite a lot of investment in that sector, and therefore reinvested earnings, which is a bulk part of the investment, is very much related with the energy prices. In Brazil, the region's largest recipient, FDI fell by 8%. However, several countries, like including Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, they saw an increase, a record rise in number and value of greenfield projects. Now, we said that when we're talking about greenfield projects, they are more of an intention because they are announced greenfield projects, which means that this might be bode well for the future. So what is maybe we might see an increase on these largest these Latin American countries. They saw this increase in the greenfield projects. FDI flows to the structurally weak and vulnerable economies increased marginally. FDI to LDCs were up 9%. Landlocked countries experienced 10% decrease, and small island development states saw 11% growth. In all three groups, FDI remains concentrated among few economies. What has happened in Bahrain? FDI flows to Bahrain decreased by 66% in 2024, but this was not due to, if you see it from the graph, it is mainly due to the fact that in 2023 there is a big jump in FDI in Bahrain, mainly due to a single deal in financial industry from investor from Kuwait. And in 2024 we have decreased, but nevertheless, it remained high at $2.5 billion. It's quite high, and if you compare a long history, it's not the second highest. There are other years that they have values around 2.5 billion, but still it's a high number. And if you see the components type of investment, greenfield investment projects more than doubled to 1.5 billion, and the number of projects increased by 48% to 49 projects. Now let's go back to the global investment. What's happened to SDG sectors? As I mentioned, we have a dedicated section for the sustainable development goals. International investment in sectors related to the SDGs declined again in 2024. Both greenfield project announcement and international project finance fell. Gold investment values declined mostly because of a downturn in international project finance used for larger projects in infrastructure sectors. Gold's investment, as you see from the graph from the table here, the infrastructure, renewable energy, water and sanitation, and agri-food, they also decline in their project values. The only sector that saw an increase was in health, where the number and value rose by about 1/5, but still they remain in a kind of less than 15 billion. So it's a modest amount. What's happened at the global level? So in the left-hand side, you have SDG sectors, and the target are developing economies. In the right side, we have industries, which is for the global. What's happened at the global level? Sectoral trends, which see that investment in infrastructure sector, there is a decline in 9% in project and 14% in project value in terms of infrastructure. Digital sector, there is an increase. There is a doubling of it's one of the sectors that they saw an increase. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this was one of the bright spots. In addition to it, we have as well the GVC sector, the greenfield project announcement in supply chain industries, including electronics, automotive, machinery, and textile, they held steady. Well, semiconductors industry affected by shortages earlier this decade, and now by strong policy pressure for production relocation, again saw a few mega project announcements. So this is basically the trends at the global, at regional level, at the industry level, and SDG sectors. Now, here we have investment policy trends, which I'm not going to discuss about that. You have it in the report. Then we have so then I will go directly I will share with you the presentation afterwards, and then you can have the rest. But then, for the sake of time, let me focus on the chapter on digital investment in digital economy. So the digital economy is growing fast and has become a major force driving global economic growth. It encompasses all activities that rely on digital technologies, from the creation to the consumption of digital and digitally enabled goods and services. However, its benefits remain unevenly distributed. To address this, the United Nations adopted the Global Digital Compact in September 2024, committing to close the digital divide, ensure inclusive digital access, uphold rights in the digital space, and strengthen global AI and data governance. This report explored how international investment can help bridge these gaps and offers practical guidance for channeling capital towards inclusive, sustainable digital growth. Now, first, what is happening in terms of trends in digital? We see that the large MNEs are the key international investors in the global digital economy. In 2024, international investment in digital economy continued to expand, driven by major MNEs shifting from traditional industries to technology and services sector. In UNCTAD's top 100 MNE ranking, first produced in 2017 and updated in this edition of the report, digital firms such as Amazon, Alphabet, Huawei, and Samsung significantly increased their share of global sales and assets, with US and companies from China dominating the top 20. The top 20 players, as I mentioned, so they are almost exclusively from the companies from China and the United States. Greenfield projects have become an important source of investment in the digital economy in the developing world. Between 2020 and 2024, these countries, so the developing countries, they attracted 531 billion in greenfield investment in digital economy, although 80% of that was concentrated in just 10 countries, 7 of them in Asia. So what we are saying basically is that there is a big increase in investment, greenfield project in digital in developing countries, but it is highly concentrated. So basically it suffered the same story that we mentioned for FDI. So the 3/4 of FDI goes to developing countries and 80% of investment in digital goes to developing countries. Least developed countries, other countries which are other not the largest 10, they are suffering. They don't have this kind of investment that is needed. So now here you have basically the top 10 countries that have the investment in digital economy. And then you have the share in total project and the share in developing economy projects. And you see that digital economy in India, 100%, 138% of projects are basically digital. This is in Malaysia, 58%. So there is quite a lot of projects that are basically there is a high share. In Malaysia, you have quite a lot of, there is a long history of policies that they want to attract investment in digital. So what is happening here? I wanted to here. So as I said, here are the major recipients of investment in digital economy, starting with India, Malaysia, Indonesia. So you have it right here. Now, which are the major investors? And here you see United States is the largest investor in terms of the United States is the largest investor with 193 billion in digital economy. But something that is important here is that you have South-South investment is growing. So Asian economies, including China, Taiwan province of China, and Singapore have becoming a major source of investment, accounting for a combined 27% of total greenfield investment in digital economy, slightly lower than the share of the United States. So here we are, the major investors, and the previous one are the major destination. So now investment was, here we have different types of investment in digital. You have investment was uneven across digital sectors. Digital services saw a rapid growth, increasing sixfold from 6 billion to 37 billion. By the way, here you have basically the investment in developing countries. You see that you have basically the digital services, they saw a big increase from 6 to 37 billion from 20 to 2024. Well, ICT infrastructure remained underfunded, well far below than the 62 billion needed annually to close the connectivity divide. So there is an estimation, there is an annual cost of 62 billion, which is needed to close this connectivity divide. And with the 15 billion, it is not enough. And here we have 9 billion for developing countries. For the global as a whole is 15 billion, and it is not enough to cover basically the gap that is needed. Greenfield investment in digital equipment manufacturing is also heavily concentrated. Asia stands as the primary hub, attracting about 190 billion in total investment. Africa and Latin America remain marginal players. Most LDCs have not benefited from the upward trend in FDI in the digital economy. This is largely because of various barriers, such as the high investment risk and cost of capital. The report is mentioning that multilateral development banks and international financial institutions can help overcome these barriers, thus playing a catalytic role in expanding digital connectivity in developing countries. There is as well another factor: the universe of investors is diversifying. Venture capital and private equity funds are emerging as key players in digital economy. Between 2020 and 2024, technology companies in developing countries received 206 billion from foreign private equity and venture capital investment, on average 40 billion annually, akin to greenfield investment in digital services announced in this period. FDI in the digital economy has significant development implications for developing host countries. Digital FDI facilitates the transfer of capital, technology, and managerial expertise, improve productivity, creates high-quality jobs, and enables the rapid expansion of digital infrastructure such as telecommunication networks, broadband access ports, and data centers. Yet, risk remain, including market dominance by foreign multinationals, unequal distribution of investment, and limited participation of LDCs. Addressing infrastructure, regulatory, and capacity barriers is essential to ensuring inclusive digital investment. So, and here in the report, we are talking as well about policies. Why LDC countries, they are receiving less digital investment, and we are talking about what are some of the restrictiveness in terms of the investment in digital. The same thing not only for the national policies, but also the international policies or the treaties. I'm not going there as well in details. What I'm speaking is what is going forward with this investment in digital. Going forward, to leverage investment in international investment in digital economy, countries need a comprehensive policy approach that incorporates 4 key elements: shaping the foundation through robust digital strategies and effective governance frameworks, stimulating investment by fostering openness to FDI and enhancing facilitation and promotion mechanism, fostering impact by ensuring that digital investment support local content, environmental sustainability, and skill development, and harnessing international investment agreement by strengthening development-oriented provision and facilitating the participation of developing countries in international rulemaking in the digital economy. So this is basically the presentation of the report in a nutshell. But as I said, I skipped quite a lot of slides for the sake of time, but you can see it there. I will share right now the presentation with colleagues there, and then we can have the discussion questions if you are interested. Thank you very much.
Right, Dr. Asra, thank you so much for your informative and fruitful presentation for the World Investment Report 2025. Also, there is a request from the audience if it is possible to get a hard copy of the report. Is it possible?
Yes, I will send it right now. I will send it right now.
Right. So,
Yeah.
shall we start question and answer?
Please do.
Yeah. So, please, anybody has a question?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Doctor, for very informative information. And I think this report is very important right now, especially with regard to sustainable development goals. And almost we approach end of the era of a new agenda which focus on the sustainable development goals. Regarding the slide, you mentioned there is a crisis in investment and sustainable development goals, and especially in the sectors. Actually, I'm very wonder from this percentage, especially in renewable energy. There is a decrease, almost 30 minus 31%, and in the infrastructure as well, minus 35%. As I know right now, يعني all countries try to transform from renewable energy to renewable energy, especially from solar, wind, and so on. Is the report mentioned the factors or the reasons why these sectors, with regard to the SDGs, is decrease or decline? And thank you.
Yeah. So, can I respond, or we have another question?
Yes.
Yes, you can respond.
Anybody wants to raise any question before he starts? Okay. There is one more question, Victor.
Yes, please.
Hello. Yeah. This is Avinash Saxena from the Gulf Daily News. First of all, thank you, Doctor, for the presentation and the explanation. I wanted to ask specifically about Bahrain. There's been the sharp decline. As you said, this was, of course, with reference to 2023. So do you have any specific details on the sectors where FDI was directed in 2024? You mentioned about greenfield projects as well. So could you explain a little bit about that? And also the FDI stock, how is that done last year? The total FDI stock in Bahrain? Thank you.
More a question? Okay, Doctor, maybe you can proceed with that.
So, as I mentioned in my presentation, there is a decline in terms of greenfield project, but also international project finance deals. SDG sectors are mostly affected by the international project finance. International project finance, especially in the last 2 years, 2-3 years, and this is due to the financing conditions. We are not anymore in the time when there is the interest rates were positive, basically when we have quite a lot of the cash was available. Now, basically, in the last 2 years, the situation is such that financing situation is such that there is a decrease in project finance. We have seen it in 2023. We have seen it in 2024. And the projects that were suffering more, they are in developing countries. And the projects that are suffering more are especially the ones that are large projects in the infrastructure sector. The same thing for the renewable energy. The driving force for the decline it comes from international project finance. So now this was we had the peak of international project finance was in 2022, and after that, then there is basically a decline. In the report, we have a dedicated section for the long-term trend on international project finance, is in the chapter 1. But the fact is that the macroeconomic situation does not allow anymore to have this rising of project finance. There was quite a lot of funds, public funds available to invest, especially I'm speaking about the funds that were available in the US, also in Europe, for climate change or for other projects that were related to renewable energy, but they are not anymore available. And so basically the macroeconomic situation, the situation of the funds that were available before they are not available, they played a role in reducing investment in infrastructure sector in SDGs. This is a dire situation, and we have already said last year as well, we mentioned that there is a big gap. We are saying that developing countries need $4 trillion to investment in order to catch the SDGs by 2030, but we see that by every year now the number of investment project values is decreasing. Now, the second question has to do with Bahrain. I have already the data for Bahrain. As I said, in terms of the industry, in terms of the industry, I see that the data are from the I can share it on the screen. The data are from the central bank, from the central bank of statistics. You have an excellent portal, in fact, and this is the information that it's available there. And you see that manufacturing, in fact, saw an increase in 2024. Let me share the screen, and maybe then you can see better the data. No, I don't know. I don't want to. So basically, we have a manufacturing. There is an increase from minus 58 million to 230 million. But the biggest decrease was in services, especially in the financial industry. That there is a decrease from 7 billion to 2 billion. Still, the financial industry received in 2024 $2 billion. Is the largest out of 2.5. 2 billion went to financial industries. So although there is a decline of 71%, they still remain the largest sector, the largest industry that received the investment. Then you have what is another industry that I see here, business activities. There is basically the same value from 625 million to 440 million. But what I will say that the largest investment took place in financial industry. The largest decline took place in financial industry from 7 billion to 2 billion in 2024. This is in terms of industries. Now, what is happening in terms of major investors? Because you have so we have So now I see that in terms of decrease and in terms of major investors in Bahrain, the major investors in Bahrain are the GCC countries. There is, in terms of developed countries, there is a decrease of 60% of in developed countries. Why? Apparently, there is a decrease in investment from Germany. Germany saw a decrease in investment from 170 million to minus 92 million. But still, the investment from developed countries remain modest. It's around $250 million. The biggest investment is from developing countries. And let me see how much is from GCC, from Asia. You have, once again, the decline came from Kuwait. that Kuwait saw a decline from 5.8 billion to 474 million. So it went basically normal. But there is a big increase from the investment from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has a negative FDI inflows in 361 million in 2023, and now we have 1.6 billion. In fact, this might be the second largest investment from Saudi Arabia. Was one in 2018 or 19, which is 1.6 again. So, but this is 1.6 billion is the investment from Saudi Arabia. This is the largest investment that took place in the country. Maybe this is the investment that is related to the investment in the financial industry, so this is basically in terms of countries. What I would here, United Arab Emirates, they don't have investment, even they have basically goes from 508 million to minus 364 million. They are normal in terms of the transactions that are taken between countries. But this is the trend that is taking place in terms of investment in sector and by industry. You mentioned about Greenfield project. Unfortunately, I don't have the information here about the Greenfield project exact. So I said that there is a big increase. The Greenfield project in Bahrain was quite large, $1.6 billion, which was, as I said, it's a good prediction for next year, because this is an announcement deal. Then I will share with colleagues there, and then you can get the information later on, or I will give you the details, and I can share the more information about by sector and by industry in terms of Greenfield. I don't have it here with me, but the most important thing is there is a big increase in terms of the value of Greenfield projects in Bahrain. And finally, you asked me for FDI stock, and FDI stock in Bahrain, in 2024, FDI stock in Bahrain is around $46 billion. If you compare it with, let's say, 15 years ago, where we have the data in time series, is 19 billion. So basically, it's more than doubling in 15 years. There is, or let's say, in 2014, which is 10 years ago, in 2015, it was 25 billion. So we have 20 billion more. So that's basically quite a lot of increase. So the FDI stock in Bahrain, it is 45 billion. And if you are interested to know which are the countries that have the largest FDI stock in Bahrain, I can tell you, and it comes definitively from Asia. And the largest one is the largest one is Kuwait with 16 billion. Sorry, I have 16. It's Kuwait with 16 billion, and then there is Saudi Arabia with 10 billion, and then United Arab Emirates. If I have Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates with 4.5 billion, and so this is basically the stock. The story of stock. If you want we have as well the stock by industry. I can mention to you, and I have to say once again that the central bank and the statistical office, they are doing an excellent job in terms of reporting the data. I am very glad about this kind of. You have all the information there. So the largest share of FDI stock in Bahrain, it's 6 billion, and it is in manufacturing. So manufacturing has 6 billion. Let me say, sorry, my apologies, I was mistaken. So the largest share of FDI stock in Bahrain is in the financial industry with 30 billion. So out of 46 billion, 30 billion are in financial industry. Then it's followed by manufacturing. They don't report details for manufacturing, but it's only 6 billion. And then there is 4 billion in terms of business activities. So basically, there are 3 sectors or 3 industries that receive the largest share FDI stock in Bahrain. It is financial industries with 30 billion, 2/3. And then you have the manufacturing, and then business activities. So this is basically the response for your question.
Thank you, Doctor. There is one more question.
Please.
Given the nature of the mix of the inflow investment, is it possible to give an estimate of the jobs newly created as a result of the net investment? I know this may not be easy answer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I respond?
Another question.
Yes. Yes, please.
I was just following the quarterly growth of 2013 and 23. And there's 2 quarters, there was a growth if you compare it with first quarter, second quarter of 23. Then it start dropping on very speedy rate. I'm just wondering why. Another wonder is how the indicators in terms of contribution of FDI to GDP. Bahrain as 23, it was around 15%, and it was ranked as League of 10, best of 10 in the world. I don't know this year how it is behaving, and I'll be very grateful if you can shed some light on that. And second or third wonder is the impact of growth or decline in FDI, the impact on labor creation, job creation. Last year or year 23, it was around 23 million jobs created with that huge growth. This year or last year, I'm wondering how much it will be. And last question is the growth in digital economy on infrastructure. Is it a growth in physical infrastructure or soft infrastructure? Where the percentage is? Are we investing? And we are talking here about developing countries, LDCs, right?
Yes.
Okay, so where we are stand on that. Thank you, sir, and thank you very much for this very informative presentation. And inshallah, I hope we enjoy it. I hope you enjoy the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can we take more questions, Doctor, or you want to proceed with those first?
Let's proceed with those, and then we can take another round.
All right, thank you.
So the first question was related to the jobs. And in fact, this is related as well with one of the questions that Dr. Zakaria made. So this year, we tried to see the impact of FDI to calculate the contribution. And in the contribution in 2000, we have already calculated back in 2011 a contribution index where it is made by 7 variables. Among them is the contribution in the value added GDP, then it is the R&D contribution on employment, and then we tried, in fact, to do this year, but unfortunately the data were not strong enough to present this kind of analysis. Nevertheless, I would say that there is a way to calculate, to measure the impact in terms of employment. This is related to the statistics that I already mentioned before when I was presenting the report to you about foreign affiliate statistics. Statistical Office in Bahrain and in many developed countries, they report employment in foreign affiliates in the country. And you very well can see how much is the employment related to the global, employment, how much foreign affiliates employ compared to the domestic companies, and how much they grow compared to domestic companies. This is an informative information. In fact, I have already once again repeated, FDI is only one number. It's a transaction, it's a balance of payments data. What is the most important is to see these foreign affiliate statistics. What is the real impact in FDI? If you get $1 million or $1 billion in the country, you want to know how much of this $1 million goes to the capital formation of the country, and how much of it goes to pass through and go to another country, which is not really an FDI afterwards. So it is important to measure these type of things, and this is the reason why countries, I think that Bahrain as well, report this kind of information. You have this kind of information. When I was last year or 2 years ago in Bahrain, I had a discussion with several institutions that they are able to collect this kind of information. What is the impact in terms of FDI? And Eurostat, or Bureau of Economic Analysis in the United States, they have very detailed information about the impact of foreign direct investment in their own countries, but not only, but they as well calculate the investment in abroad. So there is a way to calculate it. There is a way to estimate it. If I would be easier, I could show as well some numbers for Bahrain, because I calculated, to be frank, but at the end we didn't decide to include it because there was not enough data for all the countries, especially LDCs. Another way is that if you go to the Greenfield project that I mentioned to you, this is the data that we get it from the private provider, from the Financial Times. They report number of projects for a certain country. They report estimated value, but they report as well estimated employment. This is as well very indicative, and it's an announcement deal, but still it gives an information. You can get as well an information. I might get here, and I can share with you what is the employment of this $1.6 billion project announcement in Bahrain from the project, from the FDI market, so from the Greenfield database. And I can share with you, and I can say, for example, that if this is the number of employment that are estimated to be created, but this, once again, is indicative. It's not like proper statistics similar to FDI or the FAST statistics that I mentioned before. Now, let's go to the questions of Dr. Zakaria. As always, they are very good questions. The first one is comparing the quarters with the quarters. It's true that at the beginning of the year, we expected that, in Trends Monitor in January, we are looking at the first 3 quarters. And the first 3 quarters of the year, and I have to say that the data were a bit more positive, because the companies were finally seeing that the financial situation, financial market was more positive. We're expecting the interest rate to be decreasing, and in September last year there is a decrease already from the Fed in the United States, and of course many central banks were trying to relax the monetary policy, and of course this will have a kind of impact in terms of investment. The people they were eager to invest, and they were expecting even a kind of big boom in merger acquisitions. The fact of the matter is that didn't happen, didn't take place, and there is quite a lot of uncertainty that were taking place. And one of the uncertainties, as I mentioned in my presentation, is about trade tariffs. That basically the situation was that it is even now that it's not about tariffs, but it's about the uncertainty which is related to tariffs, because we don't know yet which is the tariff that will take place. So this kind of difference between the first quarter and second quarter, first half and second half of 2024 is more related with this situation and the uncertainty. So the increase in uncertainty. At the beginning, as I said, we have as well large greenfield projects that are announced in mainly in the United States, but the uncertainty is such that, and if in the report we have a table with volatility, many variables, exchange rate volatility, economic uncertainty. If you see from January to April or to May, where we calculated, you see that the big increase. These are what we can say. These are the uncertainty is the worst thing for an investor. because then what is happening is that he's sitting and waiting. And then, of course, this is what we are seeing. Basically, we're expecting to have a negative investment. Hopefully, that things are going to go better. We'll see. But and then maybe the investment will pick up again. But especially for developing countries and LDCs, this is quite important, because what is important for LDCs, for example, international project finance share in foreign investment is too big. Is very high, because they don't have domestic financing. And if this international financing is decreasing, then of course there is an impact on LDCs. And this is quite important. This is why we say as well that multilateral development banks, international financing institutions, they should help to facilitate, to reduce about the risks that are related to certain investment projects. When we are talking about, you said about job creation, as I said, this is related to the question to the colleagues before, Dr. Zakaria, is that it is important to measure that. On the first one, everything is, we have to measure it. We have to see what is exactly the impact in the economy. Because many countries, even though they collect FDI data, and I have to, once again, I have to congratulate the Central Bank of Bahrain, that the statistical office, they work together, that they basically are able to provide detailed information now and timely information about foreign direct investment. But if we have as well information about these statistics of job creation, then we will be able to see what is the impact in the economy of different projects, when we're measuring the impact of them in the economy. And finally, you mentioned about soft and hard infrastructure. When we are looking at the SDGs, we include both. And I have a problem with sharing things. In the report, we have a table for the SDGs where we go for international project finance and for the greenfield projects. And we have all the projects. We start with power, we have renewable energy, we have transport infrastructure, we have telecommunication, health and education, and we have health and education and agriculture and food and agriculture. So you have here basically both types. You have soft and hard hard infrastructure. In both cases, you see a decline. Especially, there is a decline across the board in international project finance. In greenfield, you have some differences, but in project finance, you have a decline across the board. So basically, both soft and hard infrastructure, you have still, there is basically suffering in terms of this decline.
Good. Thank you very much, Dr. Astrid, for your presentation. Good to see you and hear you again. Couple of things. At this time when international direct investment flows are under pressure, are you seeing any new trends emerging in terms of investment promotion? And if so, what are those? And specifically, the kinds of things that seem to be getting more attention in this part of the world are, for instance, the trend towards asset-light FDI, which then brings in some greater involvement on the part of local investors. And another trend, of course, I don't know how unique this is to the GCC, but it seems to be a very much a GCC phenomenon, is call it the collaborative investment approach that some of the sovereign wealth funds, such as the Public Investment Fund, etc., are pursuing. So they invest in a foreign corporate, and in a sense, in return, that foreign corporate then creates some sort of a presence in this region. So your thoughts on that. And finally, we've had questions about the employment impact. And you've now a couple of times sung the praises of the Central Bank of Bahrain in terms of data. Do you see any general improvement in terms of if So, sorry. So FDI data quality in general, do you see an improvement? And specifically, do you see a greater focus on trying to measure the impact of FDI? Thank you.
Okay, Doctor, you can answer.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to meet you again and then to hear to have your questions. First of all, in terms of some of the new patterns that we see, I would say that the topic of this report is showing exactly what you say, this kind of investment in digital. It's booming. In fact, it's increasing, you know, especially data centers that I mentioned there. You have infrastructure. So you have quite a lot of investment in digital. This is a new thing. In fact, it was one that was mentioned if you look at the trend, you know, there is basically something that it is new now in the last four or 5 years. The increase is quite remarkable. And in the report, we are talking, if you look at, because I didn't go too much on the detail of the report, you can see when you look at the way forward, there is as well some of the suggestion how countries can try to improve in terms of attracting this type of investment. And this is related as well with the investment promotion, you know, so the way how to be promoted, they are in the report. I have to tell you that this is something that it is mentioned and it is quite detailed in the report this time. I would strongly suggest you to see basically the part which is the way forward of the. I have it here, but as I said, you know that there are several steps that the report is suggesting in terms of investment in digital. Now, another factor that we thought as well, and I agree with you, that we were expecting to see sovereign wealth funds and private equity funds to be more active, you know, and this time I tried myself to see what is their impact, especially in SDGs, because if it is big, then we would have mentioned this. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Might be very present in your own region, in GCC countries, but it was not in. So we saw that the numbers were not big enough to present it. So we are not yet there. So sovereign wealth funds, they're active in terms of investment, but not necessarily the SDG sectors. And I would say that it's not yet. Maybe it's a new trend. It will come, but for the moment, we didn't see any big trend in terms of the investment there. In terms of digital, as I mentioned, you have quite a lot of picking up. You know, you have quite a lot of investment in digital sector from sovereign wealth fund, from private equity, from venture capitals. You have it there. I mentioned already in the presentation. Another thing, it's not a trend, but it is already mentioned in the report, is the investment by startup companies. We saw that there is a picking up investment in startup. I mean, I cannot say that this is a bigger emerging, but it's a trend. When I was looking at the data, I found this interesting, and we have included the box there, how the trend has started from 2007, and we are talking about some $25 billion now that annually, you know, that they have investment by startups. This is something that might be interesting as well, we can say that this is an emerging trend. We will see how it will evolve, but this is based on the greenfield investment. And once again, we're talking about intentions here. Now, in terms of the methodology, as I said, I mentioned about the central bank, but you know that we are, in terms of methodology for FDI data, we are at the end of a period of updating the manuals for FDI statistics. This year, IMF and OECD, IMF for the balance of payments and OECD for the benchmark definition for indirect investment. We finalized after 5 years of the process of updating the manuals. Now, Definitively you are going to say, okay, you can update many manuals. What is the impact? What is the reality? And I understand that, but still, even the process of updating the manual, and this year I have to congratulate, to be frank, IMF for the OECD. They are leading in the process of involving many countries, including developing countries, many experts in this area. So the process of update was not a process of only 2 or 3 or 5 experts which know the stuff, but it's a process that was involving hundreds, maybe more than 500 specialists around the world. And this is something that I really appreciated them. And I mentioned already that this is basic. It was a technical assistance in itself. Is that still, are we improving in terms of data? I would say that there are some directions that there is some improvement. One is the ultimate investor. The countries, we are more and more aware now that we are not interested to know who is the immediate investor. We want to know who is the ultimate, who is the real investor. And this is something that countries more and more, they are becoming aware. So the manuals now, they are putting a lot of stress to the fact that we need to measure so Central Bank of Bahrain, as I said, publish the data bilateral and sectoral. What I would be more happy now is that they next year or in 2 or 3 years, they are going to publish by ultimate investor. Is that, for example, everything that comes from United Arab Emirates is from United Arab Emirates or from another country. So we want to know which are the real investors. In the case of Bahrain, might not be the case, but for other countries, you have quite a lot. It's impressive, how you can say that half of FDI, for example, from the United States, they go to the countries, so these SPEs, SPE countries. The same thing from China, they have quite a lot in Hong Kong, in British Virgin Island or Cayman Island. So they are going through other countries. So this is something that the international community, statistical community, is putting a pressure on, and many countries that are starting to present the data based on ultimate country. This is important, and I think this is what is the direction. Another direction in terms of the impact is measuring greenfield investment. I think this is less, I have to say, less advanced than the ultimate investor, because greenfield investment, it requires more data. What I present here in the report and what we presented, it's in investment intention, announced. But what I'm talking is realized investment, because we want to know how much of these announced projects are realized, and which are the greenfield one. The greenfield one, the one that have a bigger impact. And now the countries, they are starting to collect, so they're improving methodology, and they are starting to collect this type of data, but I think this will take a bit longer. So these are the two major developments, and of course there are other, that countries are trying. I mean, the methodologies are presented, and countries are trying to present. Another one, finally, is and this is related with ultimate investor, is that IMF and us as well. We are reporting countries excluding SP, special purpose entities, whenever countries report separately. So now I have more than 24 countries that are sending our data with SPEs and without SPEs. And then we exclude the SPEs. In a sense, we try to measure the FDI, which is genuine FDI. Of course, still is not correct, but I mean, it's not ideal, but at least we are on the direction of excluding these SPEs. And IMF is presenting in their website, they have now database, they have data for FDI only in SPEs. So you have FDI in the country, you have SPEs, you can exclude yourself in order to get the real FDI data.
Any more question? Right, I think this is the last, Dr. Asred. Again, thank you so much for your valuable and informative presentation. And thank you all for your engagement and valuable interaction as well. And now, last not least, we would like to have a group photo along with Dr. Asred. So we will be standing this side along with him, so to be clear with him.
Very good.
Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, we would be here standing. Okay. And also, Doctor, don't forget to send us very, very
I
early
will send you the presentation. Yes, yes,
the
it's
report,
immediate.
so that we can share it with the press. Thank you so
The
much.
report, the report is in the website. There is already the report in the website.
Yeah,
But
and
I will send you the
hard copy.
presentation.
The hard copy.
Yeah.
The hard copy also, Doctor?
The hard copy is not yet ready, but
Alright.
in the website of UNCTAD, you have now the whole report, all the data, everything is there.
All right. Thank you so much. Any Doctor Yamma? So please say, please, Dr. Jamil. Badriya, please, Sarah, please. Sorry, Jawahar, say, please. Please, yes. Andrew. Sherry. شوفنا. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you very much.
much, inshallah. And
Thank
please,
you.
free to help yourself with the refreshment, please. Please have some refreshment. Dr. Asret, I don't think also you can have some refreshment.
I have another one. I have another. We have another party here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.